But one thing that I obviously want to talk about is Don Lemon. Now, Don Lemon and I don't see eye to eye in many things. Okay, we don't see the world in the same way at all. Having said that, as I've defended Jimmy Kimmel in the past, when there was an infraction against Jimmy Kimmel for basically the most like normal vanilla take possible on the Charlie Kirk assassination that wasn't even remotely offensive, and the Trump administration tried to utilize the federal regulatory agencies to get Jimmy Kimmel fired. They have upped the ante now, and they're going after Don Lemon in what I consider to be one of the most egregious, outright censorious violations of the First Amendment in the United States. Okay, this is stuff that we have not seen since World War I. This is stuff that they would sometimes engage in, never this flagrantly, never this openly. Stuff that they would engage with, like for undocumented citizens or migrant reporters that were reporting on ICE activities in the past, but never this openly, in direct violation of the Constitution. Okay, I need you to understand, this is directly a violation of the American Constitution. Why are people spamming Lemon? Oh, because Don Lemon. Okay. Don Lemon snubbed you? No, I snubbed him. But it doesn't matter. Let's take a look at what happened, and I'll give you some more commentary in a second.
Former CNN anchor Don Lemon has been arrested after he entered a Minnesota church and recorded ICE protesters as they disrupted a service. Well, let's speak to our US correspondent, James Matthews, who is in Washington for us right now. James, what's happening with Don Lemon?
Yeah, hi, Ali. Well, Don Lemon, of course, he's a big name here, former CNN anchor who he currently does his own show on YouTube, very much serial doorstepper. You know, he goes around fronting up politicians and the rest. What's happened is that this all stems from a protest a fortnight ago in a Minnesota church. Protesters went inside. They were claiming that one of the pastors worked for ICE. Don Lemon was covering it, and we've seen pictures of him, you know, going inside with protesters, doing interviews, doing journalism. That's what it looks like. He has indeed said he was reporting, not demonstrating. The Department of Justice, well, it, over the past 2 weeks, has been trying to charge a number of those who went inside the church, including Don Lemon. They've gone to at least one court, and that's been knocked back. Magistrates, judges saying, look, this just doesn't wash legally, this pursuit of him. Some charges have stuck.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Don Lemon goes into a church alongside protesters in Minneapolis. The protesters are protesting against the pastor in this church in Minneapolis that happens to work with ICE. That's an insane concept to begin with. In the United States of America, we do Christianity differently. For people who don't understand, there's no hate like Christian love, baby. Okay? So that's number one. So protesters go and pose as the clergy, and they start protesting during the, I guess, like proceedings that are taking place. Don Lemon is there acting as a journalist. Don Lemon is there as a journalist. He is filming the process. It is perfectly legal for him to be there. It is perfectly legal and constitutionally protected for him to be there and film the proceedings. Make no mistake. But because Don Lemon is a household name that a lot of boomers, especially on the Republican side, hate, they use this as an opportunity to make a big controversy out of the situation. First, they arrest and apprehend the leaders of this movement that protested at this church. Then they turn around and try to get Don Lemon to be prosecuted as well. Harmeet Dillon, who is the Assistant Attorney General in the Civil Rights Division in the Department of Justice, says on Benny Johnson's show that she is going to prosecute Don Lemon with everything that they got. This is a person who is tasked with dealing with civil rights in the Department of Justice. Think about that. How crazy. To make matters worse, she talks about it on MLK Day. She talks about using the Klan Act on MLK Day on a black man for going to a church and filming a protest at a church. Insanity. It's upside down world, man. Everything is completely upside down. That's the world we live in. That is the Trump administration. That is how they operate. Now, they first prosecute him or try to prosecute him, and the judge goes, no, I'm not doing that. You're out of your freaking mind. But that does not deter the administration. They go judge shopping, they find it, they get him indicted, and then they arrested him last night. And from what I understand, not only did they arrest him last night, but he actually spent the night in prison, from what I saw. Now, you guys might correct me on that. Maybe I'm wrong.
But not to Don Lemon. It hasn't, however, stopped his arrest. He was picked up in Los Angeles last night. He was covering the Grammy Awards. Federal agents made the arrest. And he's due to appear in court. He has been a critic of Donald Trump. And this does, of course, raise questions about fundamental freedoms in this country. His lawyer has issued a statement calling this an unprecedented attack on the First Amendment. And she's saying that he will fight these charges vigorously. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, Ali, she's issued a statement, or has tweeted the following. I'll read it to you. At my direction early this morning, federal agents arrested Don Lemon, Traherne Jean Cruz, Georgia Fort, she's a journalist, and Jamal Lydell Lundy in connection with what she's calling a coordinated attack on Cities Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. The words of the Attorney General Pam Bondi.
An anchor and a former colleague of mine and friend, Don Lemon, has been taken into custody by federal agents, according to his attorney. It comes after Lemon covered the protest earlier this month, dozens of anti-ICE protesters rushing inside of a church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Now, Don has said that he was just there as a journalist, photographing the incident as a journalist, asking questions as a journalist after the protesters went in, and has been very clear he was not part of the protest group. In a statement, Don Lemon's attorney says, quote, "This unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from the many crises facing this administration will not stand. Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court." Now, I just want to quickly let you know, Don Lemon spoke with Alisyn Camerota, another former colleague and friend from CNN, who now works for Scripps News, about the church incident. Let's go to what she told us just moments ago.
So he said that he was covering a protest. This is the St. Paul church. The protesters had reason to believe that the pastor there was an ICE agent. And so Don, the way Don described it to me is that he was doing what we do. He was covering a protest. He wasn't conspiring with them.
Yes, it is completely ridiculous. Don Lemon was well within his rights to be there. We can judge and potentially pontificate. We can argue on whether or not it was appropriate to have a protest in a church, or whether it's illegal or not. It probably isn't, and we will see that it probably isn't. Having a conversation about whether or not it's appropriate to protest at a church during a church proceeding and whatnot is completely irrelevant here, because what Don Lemon was doing was totally above board and totally legal, okay? It is insane to me that it is even a point of contention and that they are trying to criminalize journalism, because Don Lemon is acting separately from the protesters. He is there acting in the capacity of a journalist. He is there protected by the First Amendment. The protesters are most likely also protected by the First Amendment. Make no mistake. Having said that, to go after Don Lemon, I think, is yet another instance where this dumbass administration is going above and beyond to criminalize enemies that boomers have decided are dangerous threats. They did this with Jimmy Kimmel as well. I was so worried after Charlie Kirk's assassination that these guys were going to do like terrorism watch lists, and that liberals were going to completely write off people like myself, saying, oh, well, we also agree that people like Hassan are actually too radical. Take care of them, administration. Take care of them, please. It's totally fine. Turns out they were so horny to dish out punishments to people that boomers despise, to the people that like Trump personally despises, that they went after Jimmy Kimmel, and they bit off a lot more than they could chew. And then everybody responded with, what the hell are you doing? This is completely unacceptable. And they're doing the same thing again with Don Lemon. They do not have the capacity to demonstrate restraint, and it basically cooks their agenda over and over again because they're too heavy-handed with their approach, and people react and people push back immediately and they go, this is unacceptable. This is a violation of the First Amendment. And obviously, I'm one of those people as well. I'm saying that this is a complete violation of the First Amendment. The fact that they are trying to criminally prosecute a journalist is insane to me. And I hope that every single person, including Steve Miller, that have urged the federal government and all of the law enforcement agencies to violate the law, I hope that every single one of those people get prosecuted later down the line. They must be prosecuted. They must be punished. Democrats need to do this. Do I believe that the Democrats are going to do this? No, I don't believe the Democrats are going to do this at all. As we saw in the back and forth that took place in the Senate, where Chuck Schumer basically decided we are going to concede. We do not want to actually to take advantage of the popular sentiment here and the unpopularity of the administration, especially as it erroneously sends federal agents as a tyrannical apparatus of the state to go out and do violence to random American citizens that are simply protecting their neighborhoods. They backed away from that. They did not actually make demands about clawing back ICE funding. It was completely inappropriate. It was completely ridiculous, but it was completely expected from the Democrats. And unfortunately, I don't believe that the current National Democratic Party as it stands is going to fight back against the Republicans by making sure that they follow the law. But I will fight for anyone that spreads that message. I will fight for any Democrat that comes out and says, yes, we are going to punish these people. We are going to punish the Republicans that have made rule breaking a consistent policy in this administration.
He knew that they were going to be protesting something. He wasn't in on their plans, he says, beforehand, which is one of the things that the DOJ has suggested. And then he stayed outside, he says. The protesters went inside the church. And when he realized that the protest was unfolding inside the church, he then went inside. And so, obviously our legal experts can describe whether that's trespassing on private property, but either way, that's a misdemeanor. And, the idea that Don Lemon, as a journalist, has now been arrested is just in an entirely different category.
Now, I have some more breaking news. We have just learned that another independent journalist who is very popular here and very well known here in Minneapolis and in Minnesota, Georgia Fort, has also been arrested. We have now seen video of her inside of her home telling us that there are FBI agents outside of her door demanding that she come out. She said that they had a warrant, that they had gone to a grand jury. So this is brand new breaking news. She is describing what is happening, saying that the federal agents say that they had a warrant, that there was a grand jury involved, and that she must come out to be arrested. She said that she spoke to her attorney. Her attorney advised her to go with them. And that is exactly what she did, and that she was taken to the Whipple building. So now there are two journalists who have been arrested by the FBI, by federal agents, after the incident that happened at a church. Joining me now are CNN's Kara Scannell and our chief media analyst, Brian Stelter. So, Kara, what are we learning about the situation with Don Lemon?
Well, Sarah, we do know that Don Lemon was arrested last night in Los Angeles in the 11 o'clock hour local time. I'm told that by a source that he was in a hotel lobby on his way to an event related to covering the Grammy Awards, and that is when he was arrested by the agents and taken into custody. It is expected he will appear in court in Los Angeles this morning, and that the charges against him will be unsealed. Now, as we've been discussing, Lemon was part of a larger attempt by the Justice Department to bring charges against a number of people, some from the protesting group last week, and that the judge had rejected that complaint against some of the individuals, including Don Lemon. He had suggested if DOJ wanted to go forward, they might want to look toward going before a grand jury. So that would follow the process that played out, where the judge did not believe that there was sufficient evidence, but if a grand jury did, then that would be the route that the Justice Department could take. It's possible possible that they have returned an indictment, though we have not yet seen the document. We have not seen any updates from the court about what this instrument is that Lemon was charged in, and specifically what he was charged with. We do know, though, that some of the protesters who were there, who were not journalists, but the protesters were charged with going into the church and disrupting this religious service, violating laws related to that. So it's possible that that will be the similar charge that Lemon will face. All this will become much more clear, though, once these documents are unsealed, and we do that. Expect that to happen this morning. As this will then continue to play out. I mean, as this new arrest tells us, Lemon was arrested last night in Los Angeles. This other journalist was arrested this morning. If there are other arrests related to this, because not everyone was charged in that initial complaint that the Justice Department was trying to charge, they could be playing out this morning. So it may be an instance where we do see additional arrests, and then we do eventually see this charging document and understand what charges they are specifically facing. As you said, Lemon's lawyer, Abby Lowell, says that he will fight this vigorously, and that, it is not unprecedented for journalists to be charged, but it is also very unusual for journalists to be charged because of their First Amendment right to cover events and certain protections that journalists have to participate in capturing news. So there is definitely going to be a big fight here to come on behalf of Don Lemon and most likely this other journalist as they fight back on these charges, which his lawyer is saying is unprecedented attack on the First Amendment. And as we have seen, the president and his attorney general have gone after people that Trump does see as his perceived enemies. Don Lemon is particularly one of those. Sarah?
Yeah. Kara Scannell, thank you for your reporting and getting us caught up to speed. We are expecting to see any time now this morning or perhaps into the afternoon the charges, because this has to go through court and it has to be made public. Brian Stelter, now that you are learning that there are two journalists who have been taken into custody, one of whom we know well, our colleague and friend Don Lemon, the other who is very well known here as an independent journalist, she also saying that she was taken into custody, Georgia Fort. I saw her just the other day. She was covering the Ilhan Omar incident. What does that tell you about what the Trump administration is doing here? I mean, the First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason.
A disturbing escalation against reporting in America. And I would also put it in the framework of protests. This is part of an ongoing pressure campaign against protests, especially the kind of provocative anti-Trump protest action that we have seen makes the administration so uncomfortable and frankly makes some voters very uncomfortable. This is an action, this arrest of Don Lemon, this arrest of this independent journalist who is live streaming and reporting in Minnesota. This is something that some MAGA loyalists have been demanding. They've been wanting to see it happen. When Trump promised retribution, this is the kind of retribution that some of his voters, not all, but some of his voters wanted to see. And I think that is, for better or for worse, some of the context for what we're seeing this morning. In this, the First Amendment is meant to protect.
No matter what these guys say, I need you to understand something. What Don Lemon did is constitutionally protected action. What Don Lemon did is constitutionally protected action. The very fact that the administration is actively pursuing him for constitutionally protected action is completely ridiculous. This is done with one goal in mind, which is to create a chilling effect on speech. The reason why they're doing this is because they want you to think twice if you are a journalist, independent, or if you are a journalist with a large media outlet. The reason why they're doing this is because they want you to stop and think twice before you cover something. There is a reason why this is a violation of the First Amendment. This is fundamentally un-American.
Both a reporter's right to report, but also a congregation's right to worship. So legal experts might say this is somewhat complicated, although Lemon said all along he was there as a reporter, not as an activist. And he did a really important job showing people, all of us now who can watch the video, what happened inside that church. I want to back up to that Sunday morning. That intrusion into City's church was sincerely shocking to many, many millions of Americans, myself included. People, saw that video, they saw Lemon's video, and they were uncomfortable by what happened inside that church. The idea that worship service was disrupted by protesters. And now there's a very interesting debate about whether the protesters were right or whether they were wrong to go into the church. But that is a political debate, and that's a debate about what forms of protest are effective. The Trump administration's moving that political debate into the legal arena and wanting to take it into court and have a court fight. And we know there have been these attempts to arrest some of the other protesters last week who were there. And now we have these arrests of these reporters who documented the scene. I'm reminded of what one of Lemon's friends, Jennifer Welch, said to her on a podcast. Lemon was talking to Welch, and Welch said to Lemon, quote, "You are a prize for them, an independent, gay, black, happy, successful man. And this is an attempt to intimidate and beat you down." So that's how Lemon's friends see this situation. This attempt to charge him, and now this actual arrest of Lemon. He's in jail in LA now, as an attempt to target another Trump foe. And let me also quote, Sarah, our colleague Larry Madowo, who's based in Nairobi, who covers Africa for CNN. He wrote on X a few minutes ago, "This arrest is a gift to authority because even America..."
Yeah, let's be real. They were doing that anyway, okay? Don't be ridiculous. They don't need permission from America to do so. As a matter of fact, as long as they are in line with American foreign policy, they're going to do that regardless, and America's not going to say shit. I'll give you the greatest example of this, Turkey. Turkey is a NATO nation. Turkey is a profoundly important country in America's grand design of the Middle Eastern region, whether it be Syria or elsewhere. And therefore, Turkey has been arresting journalists for years, okay? I can't even go back to Turkey for this reason, for this literal reason, okay? So when Brian Stelter says stuff like this, it's just like, it's a little silly. They do this anyway. We should not be doing this, okay? I don't give a shit what other countries are doing. This is why I get mad when people go, "Oh, what about China?" or whatever. It's like, no, dude, we live in America, okay? We live in the United States of America. This is something that is supposed to be, fundamental. This is something that's supposed to be unimaginably important. Just because this is happening to someone that you don't like does not change that reality, okay? What happened to all the Constitution understanders and defenders? It is completely ridiculous.
That is stark. It is reality. There is, as we have spoken about, the potential of a major chilling effect, although I certainly am not going to shut my mouth. I know that you won't either. There are many journalists that will continue to call a spade a spade. But there is a definite fear here, especially for those who are independent journalists, who are smaller, who don't have an apparatus around them as they are out in the streets, or if they go into buildings, whether or not they are protected, and whether they have the means. Sure.
We have heard, by the way, from Pam Bondi moments ago. She says Lemon's arrested. She mentions Georgia Fort. She mentions 2 other individuals, she says, all arrested in connection with what happened at the church. So the Attorney General now confirming these arrests. She says 4 people were taken into custody total.
And we know that one person who was arrested, a protester, was a former NAACP president locally here, Nekima Levy-Pounds. She was let out, and she is disputing that they went into church without permission. She said they had permission. We will see how this goes forward, but it is a stunning development that now we know at least 2 journalists have been arrested by the DOJ because of their coverage of a protest. We'll see what happens next.
What is the latest?
You tell me. With this administration, you don't know. Look, I'm not naive. I think they're probably going to try again and again, as they did with Tish James and Comey and everyone. If one doesn't work, then they try something else, and that fails, and they try something else, and then they just don't give up because they want to save face. But I don't know what's next. I think what's next is that I have to be in it for the long haul, and and just to be strong as always and keep calm and carry on.
Because this federal magistrate judge said that they didn't have a case. Basically, the Department of Justice said that they didn't have a case. I mean, the judge said the Department of Justice didn't have a case. But you think that it's not over?
No, I think it's not over. Because it doesn't matter if there's no law to fit. They will try to fit or retrofit something or go around a judge and just do it themselves. And it doesn't matter. And everything that they say pertains to protesters. I was not a protester. I was very clear about that. If you